Okay, I think we are live. Um, so topic, today's topic is going to be all about charting your cycle and why you may want to chart your cycle if you're not already charting your cycle, and how this can be a really, really powerful tool both for trying to conceive and then afterwards, if you are someone who no longer wants to go back on any hormonal form of birth control. Charting is a really amazing tool. The reason why you want to chart your cycle is because it is a more accurate way to confirm that you actually have ovulated. So when you are actively trying to conceive, what charting your cycle does is helps you confirm ovulation, but also it narrows down your fertile window into that 6 day um, time of the month that you actually can get pregnant. So it's a myth that we can get pregnant any day of the month. I feel like we are taught this as young women to scare us away from having intercourse at a young age because it may result in a baby. And then when we actually go to try and conceive, a lot of women nowadays are using things like the apps. And what the app does is it's based on a 28-day cycle, which isn't even the actual average. I think only 16% of women, maybe it's slightly above 16% of women, have a 28-day cycle. So that's a pretty low number. And then that algorithm in the app will automatically say that you ovulate on day 14. So what's nice about the apps is that the more information you put into them, the better the algorithm is going to get at honing in on your um, individuality. But it's still just an algorithm. It's not taking into consideration how was your sleep last night. Do you have any hormonal imbalances going on? It doesn't take into consideration how your diet may affect your fertility. So here's where charting comes in. You want to find an app that's going to chart your temperatures, and charting your cycle looks like a few things. There are three main tools. So, basal body temperature is the first one, cervical mucus, and then cervical position. So, I personally don't use cervical position. I find that when your cycle is pretty regular, you can hone in on that fertile window on just the mucus and the temperature. Now, if your cycle is not regular, you'll find that out through charting. And that is a really good indication that something is off in your body if you're not regularly ovulating. And so that is a good reason to chart when you're trying to conceive, because traditionally a doctor is going to say if you're under 35 years old, try for a year. And if you're still not pregnant, come back and see me then. But if you discover through charting that you're actually having irregular cycles, then it's a reason to go seek additional support before that year mark. So, charting is really good for that as well, to see if something is irregular. Some women who use the apps are like, oh, yeah, I have a 28-day cycle. But they're just looking at the app as a way to say, oh, my period may be coming up, or ooh, I think I'm ovulating around this time, and just assume they have a 28-day cycle. But then when they start actually putting in um, more information, they may find, oh, this month it was 28 days, this month it was 30, and that type of 1 to maybe max of 4 days fluctuation month to month is okay and can be regular. It's when you're seeing more than 4 days. Let's say one month it's 30 days and the next day your cycles, the next month your cycle's 37 days. That's when we're starting to see some of the irregularities. So again, charting your menstrual cycle, you're going to want to either download an online paper chart to do this, or find an app that will chart things like your basal body temperature so that you can see the temperature shift. And that temperature shift is what confirms your ovulation. So My favorite apps that I like to use are the Premom app or Kimdera, and I'll put those in the comments afterwards. If you have another app that you're currently using, you're watching the replay, feel free to drop it below. Say what the app is, say what you love about it. What I personally like about the Kindera app is it has the ability to turn off the predictor of ovulation. So that way you really have to focus on your body and you're not focusing on the app's prediction of when you're going to be ovulating. So I really like that feature because it makes me pay closer attention. So again, just to review real quick, we have two tools that we're going to be tracking on the app, basal body temperature and cervical mucus. Again, cervical mucus is also something that women may notice some irregularities with. I'll go over briefly what you're looking for. So when you're charting your cycle, you're going to be taking your temperature every single day. So that is one thing that's consistent. Some pointers or tips on tracking your temperature. Find a thermometer that measures 2 decimal points for better accuracy. Use the same thermometer every day. Take your temperature at the same time every morning in the same way. So let's say you're doing it orally. You want to do it orally every single day, not one of the head thermometers or anything like that. So some people also have it's called temp drop. That may be another tool. I personally don't have an experience with that, but that is a good thing that I've heard if you don't have consistent wake times. So that's another tool. I just don't have personal experience with it. So if you're not using something like the Ava bracelet or temp drop, using an actual thermometer orally is my suggestion. So again, doing it at the same time every day. To get started with this, if you are someone who uses an alarm, keep it on your nightstand and do it as soon as you turn off your alarm. You want to do it before you get up to go to the bathroom or brush your teeth or take even a drink, because those things are going to change your temperature. So basal body temperature is the temperature first thing in the morning before any physical activity. So you're going to take your temperature and you're going to log that into the app. And you'll see you should see a biphasic pattern. So the first half of your cycle is your follicular phase. So from day 1, the day of your first full bleed, until the day before ovulation. And then after ovulation, you'll see a temperature spike, and it will stay raised until your next period. If you're pregnant, it will continue to stay raised because what causes the temperature rise is progesterone, and that is produced by your body during ovulation and after ovulation when there's the corpus luteum is formed. So once the egg drops down into your fallopian tubes, where the egg was creates a new organ called the corpus luteum, and that's what produces the progesterone. So this is how you can actually confirm ovulation. Whereas some people are told to use ovulation predictor kits or ovulation tests, what that is measuring, and that's done through urine, and what that's measuring is just a surge in your hormones. So a lot of women who experience things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, who are using these test kits, they'll see a spike and assume that they're reaching their peak, which is when you want to have intercourse close to ovulation, when that LH is really high. But then they may not actually ovulate, the egg may not actually drop, and in which case it goes back down, and before they actually bleed again, they may have another one. And so this is why, temperature charting can confirm ovulation and actually give you a little bit more reliable data. You want to be charting, again, temperature every single day, and you want to do this for as many months as possible leading up to when you're actually going to try and conceive, because then that way you have more data. In my opinion, data is very useful when you actually use it and collect it. So temperature is one thing, and then cervical mucus is the next. So I mentioned your follicular phase starts day one of your first bleed. So, or full day one of your first full bleed. Um, so you'll notice the blood for 3 to 7 days is pretty average, and then you may experience some dry days where you'll not see any type of discharge, and then you may see a more of a lotion type of cervical mucus. And then when you start to see the what people call egg white cervical mucus, and it's like that stretchy, if you think of an egg white, that consistency is very, very fertile. And that is what makes you fertile more than just the day of ovulation. So cervical mucus um, helps keep sperm alive inside of you for up to 5 days. So, assuming that your partner has good quality sperm um, and you have a lot of cervical mucus, you could be having intercourse, up to 5 days before ovulation and still get pregnant, even if you didn't have intercourse anymore that month. So this is how, like, when travel comes into play or work schedules kind of mess things up, you don't have to stress as much because you can still have those opportunities to conceive that month, because cervical mucus is going to keep the sperm alive. So again, you'll have your bleed that you'll track on your app. You want to be tracking the bleed. You can track the days of no cervical mucus. And then you want to track the consistency and amount of cervical mucus as well. So a lot of these apps have, ways to chart this, to chart the type and the amount. And when you see a robust amount of egg white cervical mucus, you're in your fertile window. Something else to look out for is a higher libido. You may just feel like you are more attracted to your partner that week. So these are things to look out for. But by charting this, you can start to see the patterns of temperature rise and the combination of the temperature patterns and cervical mucus. Sorry, that's what you hear is my dog running around chasing her leg. So you're charting cervical mucus, amounts, temperature every single day, and these apps have so many other things that you can chart as well. But just to start out, I would definitely do the two things that I mentioned today for as many months as possible, consistently every single day. So if you're someone who doesn't notice cervical mucus in your underwear, doing something like wiping with toilet paper before you go to the bathroom could be something to do if you're not seeing a robust amount. Also using clean hands to feel inside of you to see if there's any mucus present there. So it doesn't need to be a ton, but you just still want to be charting it to see if you're producing cervical mucus, because if you're not, that could also be an indicator of hormonal imbalance. So if you have any questions, if you're watching this live, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you're watching the replay, feel free to drop questions in the comments and make sure to tag me. Yeah, so never knew egg white. Yeah. So now you know the egg white stage is that fertile window. So if you are seeing it, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So we know that that's a sign of a pretty healthy cycle. But as you can see, you'll start to narrow in on when you should be focusing on the act to make a baby. Great. So that's all I have for today. And yeah, feel free to always, ask questions in the live or the discussion feed as well. or message me privately if you have other questions about cervical mucus or charting your cycle. This was meant to be just a pretty brief introduction to not overwhelm you, but get you started. I just really quick, we'll finish up with how your chart should look. In the follicular phase, your temperatures will be probably in the 97 range. Some people see a dip on the day of ovulation, and then post ovulation, they see a spike. And so the spike with 3 consecutive days of raised temperatures will confirm that you ovulated. And you want to see, I think it's like at least a half a degree temperature rise is a good indicator of a healthy cycle. So as you can see, this is just one tool in the toolbox to really get into like understanding your body. Because if your cycle's not right, it means there's something else going on that needs to be addressed. Yeah, so the app can be a useful tool. I know some people who maybe have suffered from infertility in the past or are like hyper focused on the app and they're in that like just relax phase. They want to not focus on it. It's really up to you. But I really think that when done correctly and consistently is just a really powerful tool. So hope this was helpful, and I will see everyone and talk to everyone later.